All welcome to the Housing and Neighbourhoods Committee. My apologies for a little delay, IT issues as usual. I'll just pass you for Christine for the housekeeping rules.
Good evening. Thank you to all those attending the Housing and Neighbourhoods Committee this evening and to those who are watching this meeting live on our YouTube channel. To those who are present with us this evening, I would just like to run through some brief housekeeping rules with you. Please could we ask you to use hand sanitizer when entering and exiting the room this evening, and you will find sanitizers located within the room should you require to use this during the meeting. We ask that face coverings are worn when moving around the room and are only removed when you are seated or standing to talk on an item. Please also remember to follow the social distancing guidelines in place. We are operating a one-way system in the room this evening, and you will see signs on the doors and floors to assist you. We are not expecting any test fire drills this evening. If you should hear a fire alarm, please make your way out of the room and down the stairs where officers will assist you to the evacuation location, which is across the road outside the Star Hotel. Anyone requiring help in the event of an evacuation, please make yourself known and the relevant assistance will be provided. Please could I ask that all mobile phones are either switched off or to put onto silent mode this evening. Members, I will remind you that should you wish to speak, please raise your hand and wait for myself or the chairman to acknowledge you, and your name will be added to those wishing to speak. When called upon to speak, you will be required to press the button on your microphone in front of you, which will turn red when active. Please can we ask you that you speak both loudly and clearly into the microphone so those watching live can hear you. When voting this evening, members, this will be undertaken by a show of hands. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Christine. Okay, item number 1 on the agenda is apologies for absence, please.
I've had apologies from Councillor Cameron. Councillor Wells is subbing for this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any declarations of interest in tonight's? No. Okay, moving on to item number 3 then, which is the minutes of the last meeting, which is on page 4 of your packs. Go through the pages for accuracy. Pages 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Is there any matters arising from the minutes? No. Okay, moving on to item number 5 then, which is the forward plan, which is on page...
Sorry, Chair, can I just have a show of hands to say that they're confirmed in the minutes? Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Item number 5 then, forward plan, which is on page 12. Any comments on the forward plan? No. Moving on to item number 6 then, which is the housing revenue account outturn, which is on page 14. I think Danielle to report.
I think we're on. Okay, right. The HRA outturn for 2021. So the outturn reflects a deficit of £1 million against a forecast deficit of £1.45 million, resulting in a variance of £450,000. The impact of the 2021 deficit means that the HRA will carry forward £8.5 million worth of reserves into 21-22. COVID restrictions have impacted capital improvement works within the year as a result of access restrictions, reduced resource and sourcing materials in the year. Due to the impact of COVID-19 restrictions on capital improvement works, budget totaling £1.27 million is requested to be carried forward to support the 21-22 programmes. The 2021 financial year has reflected a significant decline in right-to-buy completions in comparison to prior years. This decline appears to be as an impact of COVID-19. There have been 9 right-to-buy completions during 2021 against an estimated figure of 37. This is compared to 27 sales in the year prior. Reduced right-to-buy sale completions in year, along with increased acquisitions and new build dwelling additions being added to the stock, means that our overall lettable stock in year has increased to 5,787. There's also a small amendment within the report to table 4, which I believe is page 19 within your agenda. The opening dwelling stock is 5,766, with 9 right to buy sale completions in year, one conversion being completed, which was 2 3-bed semi-detached properties being converted to 1 6-bed detached house, 8 new build additions in year, and 23 acquisitions from the open market, which obviously results in our overall stock balance of 5,787. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Any questions on item number 6? No? Thank you. Moving on to item number 7 then, the sheltered housing review on page 26 to 29. Nicola, please.
Sorry, Chair. We need to do the recommendations for the previous.
My apologies.
Would you like me to read them?
Please.
Right. It is recommended that Housing and Neighbourhoods Committee recommend the Council the following. The outturn position for the Housing Revenue Account for 2021 as included in the report and appendices. The updated 21-22 HRA review and expenditure budget as detailed at Appendix C, and the updated 21-22 HRA capital programme and associated financing of the as detailed within the report and at Appendix D. If I could have a show of hands, please. Thank you. That's carried. Thank you, Chair. Sorry.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 7 then, sheltered housing review. Nicola Turner.
Justin Gibbs, the Tenancy Services Manager, will be presenting this item, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Justin, fire away when ready.
Thanks, Chair. This report sets out our proposed approach to review our sheltered housing services to ensure we support our residents to live independently in their home and have access to a wide range of services. The review proposes to develop an understanding of areas including what lessons can be learned from service delivery during and prior to the pandemic, what services are delivered by other providers, does our stock meet the demand for sheltered housing, what communication methods and frequency would our tenants like to see, what is the desired service delivery and communal provision linked to service costs, and how can our communal rooms be effectively operated. Our tenants will be placed at the heart of this review with a detailed survey undertaken supported by our tenancy support officers and subsequent consultation on the proposed new service. Our findings will be presented to this committee for consideration. I request the approach set out in this report is approved and ask if you have any questions.
Go to the report. Sorry, Trevor.
Yeah, thanks, Ruth. I'm pleased to see this is at last coming forward for a review. I think it's long overdue. Just on the detailed consultation with the tenants, that will be a detailed consultation. Will it be sort of paper copy? Will it be delivered to people? Because not a lot of these tenants have got internet access or anything like that. So will we be making provision so all our 1,076 properties are contacted in one way or another?
Yes, certainly. It's a consultation, the fact that we will be using our tenancy support officers to make sure it's undertaken in person in the initial stages to develop an understanding of the services that our residents would like to be delivered, and then there'll be a further consultation based on the agreed approach moving forward. So for me, it's really important that there is that face-to-face approach, because I appreciate that obviously some of our residents have different means of wanting to engage with us, and this will ensure it's a detailed consultation survey. So it'll be looking at points of how our communal rooms are used, for example, looking at how our tenancy support officers work with residents and many other areas as well.
Can I just ask that obviously once you've framed these questions, is it possible to sort of send them around, Mr. Chairman, to this committee to have a look at, just to cast our eyes over it before they actually start talking to the tenants?
I have no objections to that, Chair, if that's...
I'm happy for it to be in the open then.
Yes.
Just so we know, because obviously, I represent the Magdalen Ward, there's a lot of sheltered tenants there. So it'd be nice to know what questions they're being asked before they're asked them, basically.
And I think we'd appreciate your support with the residents as well. Certainly, can do.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Mike Smith-Clare.
Thanks, Chair. It's with regards to 2.1, and that is the fourth bullet point. It's just the term undertaking contact with tenants on need rather than frequency basis. And it's maybe seeking some clarification regarding that term. I know in the past, particularly when the use of the wardens, that they managed to build up a relationship with tenants, that sometimes it was that relationship then enabled an understanding of need, rather than it just being a basis where sometimes without that relationship, there are certain residents that I know of that maybe aren't aware of problems, and I don't like those being overlooked. You know, so it's just that clarification without that actual contact. How sometimes do we know that there's need, and how can we avoid people being ignored?
I think that's for me, that's an important point of the consultation, or of the review, if I'm honest. When we had the old warden service, it was very much a approach that was delivered on frequency. Obviously, we've now moved to a bit of a need basis, and that came about out of the sheltered housing review when the funding was withdrawn through Norfolk County Council and supporting people. The need is very much based on the knowledge of this team working with those residents, and that's very much how we deliver that at the moment. But certainly the approaches that we've delivered during the pandemic and prior to the pandemic, and also that we had with the old warden service, will be considered as part of this review.
Okay, Councillor Price.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I don't know whether I caught one of the comments right, Chairman. Did the officer say that in the first instance each tenant would be contacted personally on a face-to-face basis? Is that what you said?
Yes, that is the approach we're looking to take, yes.
On the basis of that, and I applaud that because you do get them out of first hand, how do you intend doing that in this current situation with the COVID regulations still in place? And I think we're all aware of that people in these vulnerable houses at times just do not wish to speak to people who turn up on the doorstep, or even sometimes by appointment. That's quite a task you're chosen to undertake.
It is a task. What I would say is that our tenancy support officers are very well known and working very closely with all residents through the pandemic and prior. So there's a good relationship with our tenancy support officers with the residents. We clearly understand there's many anxieties, both through the pandemic we've gone through and moving forward, and as things change over the next few weeks and months. And the reason probably for this consultation being delayed until now is to make sure we can try and achieve this as we move out of the pandemic. Clearly, we're going to have to review this as we move forward, but we will work with residents based on how they would like us to engage with us. So, clearly, if personal contact is not what they'd like to do, and would like it to be done in a different way, we will certainly try and we will certainly facilitate that. So.
Yes, and there's an ancillary question, Chairman. When that is done, and I take Councillor Wainwright's point, and that's a very valid point, will say Councillor Wainwright and say myself or Councillor Williamson, who have a high a percentage of people in our wards, will we be able to have an input into the questions based on our experience, or will that be purely from the officers?
Nicola, did you want to?
You'll have to shout, Nicola.
I'm sorry, Nicola, I can't hear you. Oh. I'm sorry, Nicola, I still didn't hear that. I should have perhaps interrupted you earlier, but
Can we get Nicola? Can you email?
yeah, I'm sure.
Councillor Price afterwards, please.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Just to clarify, councillors, what the Housing Director is saying is she's going to circulate for consultation to this committee the proposed questions and let you know when they're going to be out and about asking the questions.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Martin, and then Councillor Hammond, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say I'm really thankful for this review. As detailed in the report, the Warden Service has been a vital service, and as described, wardens were at the heart of the community, so I really do hope that this continues again. Thankfully, my concerns about the engagement has been raised, but something I did identify was the mention of the communal rooms, that it's actually been highlighted about the underuse of the communal rooms since it had started to be led by the tenants themselves. So I was just hoping that this would be a key focus point going forwards to support the future use of the rooms, because as we know, when you put that on to people to engage themselves and set up activities, it's a very difficult thing to do. And lastly, as Councillor Mike Smith-Clare had mentioned, just about the concern with the language, I just think we need to be mindful of saying based on need, not frequency, because it tends to be the need reflects physical care, and I think there needs to be a massive focus on mental health, because something the pandemic has taught us is combating social isolation and engaging with people. And quite often, when you ask people over the phone, are you okay? They'll say, yes, I'm okay, when in actual fact they're not. And we're missing key opportunities to engage with our residents and identify needs that might go amiss if we just base it solely on identified needs. So that's a major concern for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hammond.
Thank you, Chair. To be fair, what I was going to say, Jade has just said. I have had a few people say to me that even before the pandemic came along, they'd lost interest in their communal rooms. They weren't what they used to be. And one lady did say to me recently, even if they're up and running again, she's now so used to her own company, she won't bother, which I think is very sad. So I wondered if, when you're putting together the letter Councillor Wainwright said, you could actually somehow discuss with them how they would, make more use of the rooms. Yeah. That was basically it, really. Thank you.
We certainly will do. The communal rooms for me is an asset right in the heart of the community, and it really upsets me, if I'm honest, that we see that some of those rooms are not being facilitated and used as much as they should be. So a clear point in this consultation will certainly be point towards the communal rooms, but it will be looking at how we can use those communal rooms, and we will really be looking to work with our residents to see what they'd like to see in their community, and so that we can support that. We also will be looking at and engaging with other organisations to see how they're using communal rooms across the county, so that we can try and learn any lessons there are from other providers, and that will be built into this report that we presented to committee.
Okay. Any more questions or comments? No. So the recommendations are on page 30 of the pack. Can I have all those in favour, please? Any against or abstentions? One abstention. Moving on to item number 8 then, which is the GYBC Tenancy Policy 2021, page 30 in your packs. And I think that's Nicola to report, if the mic's working. Oh, Stephen. Sorry, I ain't got that note in front of me. Okay.
Christine Spooner, Housing Strategy Performance Policy and Performance Officer. The tenancy policy sets out the Council's approach to the provision of tenancies and mutual exchanges. It's just undergone a biennial review following its approval in 2019. And as part of that review, we've actually made some changes. Some of those are to reflect the inclusion of new legislation, specifically the Domestic Abuse Act 2021. And there have also been several clarification amendments just to make the tenancy policy clearer. They're set out in the policy at section 2, and we recommend that the committee adopts this updated policy. Does anybody have any questions?
No? Okay. So can I have all those, the recommendations again on page 30, can I have all those in favour? Any against? Abstentions? 1. Okay. Thank you, Christine. Moving on to item number 9 then, which is the use of right to buy receipts, page 47 to 54 of the PACs.
Yeah, I'm also going to introduce this report. So the updated retained right to buy receipts policy was approved by Housing and Neighbourhoods Committee in February this year. And this update fulfills an annual monitoring requirement that was part of that report, and also some questions by members. As you'll see from the report, there's data from right to buy sales which has been set out, and also data on acquisitions, new builds and grants which have been made using the receipts. This has been analysed and summarised in tables in the body of the report. There's also an appendix which details the locations, the types, the sizes and the accessibility of homes acquired over the last 2 years. I hope it's all clear, but again, if members have any questions, please ask.
Any questions? Trevor?
Yeah, thank you. No, it is a good report. Well, we would just ask that when we are looking at these properties that we're going to buy, we do actually look at some with a view to adapting them as well for disabled needs, because there seems to be a real shortage in the borough of houses that can accommodate disabled residents. So I just hope that when we do buy stuff, we are actually looking at that as well. Thank you.
Yeah, just to confirm that we do look for that. We look at properties that are capable of being adapted, and we also look at properties which have already gone through adaptations and are already accessible. But as you say, there is a need. Yeah.
Okay, and the recommendation is to note that report. Thank you again. Moving on to item number 10, which is the Council Housing Compliance Performance 2020, page 55 of the report.
Providing oversight of the Council's compliance and ensuring that complaints are used to improve service delivery. This report to you today provides information on the Council's compliance and performance as at the 31st of March 2021. The report shows that the Council is compliant with the Regulator of Social Housing's 4 consumer standards and also the rent standard. And this reflects a change and improvement in the position over the last few years. The table at paragraph 2.1 within the report identifies that in relation to the home standard and the tenant involvement and engagement standard, whilst we're fully compliant with the requirements of the standard, we've identified that there are areas where we do need to improve that compliance. And a commentary is provided on these areas at paragraph 2.2, which sets out the improvements that we've identified that are required and how we will achieve those improvements. Appendix 1 provides much more information on the Council's compliance against the requirements of each of the 5 standards, and I would recommend that appendix to you, which is at page 61, because it does just give you a really good overview of how our compliance is being assured. Appendix 2 to the report provides information on the number and timescale for responding to both Stage 1 and Stage 2 complaints. I should advise that halfway through last financial year, we moved to a new 3-stage complaint process. So while Appendix 3 does note that there are no Stage 3 complaints, we just need to be mindful that it was a mid-year change in policy. And it shows you how we performed, and it also provides information on GYN's compliance and performance in relation to complaints. I should just say that in terms of repair complaints, some of them come initially to the Council and others are made directly to GYN. The report also provides an update on resident engagement, and you will have noticed that on the forward programme for this committee, that the resident engagement strategy will be coming to the September meeting for your adoption and review. I should say review and adoption, shouldn't I, that way round. And Appendix 3 provides information on the Council's performance against the Regulator of Social Housing's proposed new tenant satisfaction measures. What I do need to say about Appendix 3 is that we provided performance information where we're able to do so. Because some of those measures aren't actually fully defined at the moment, we aren't actually able to collect that information. And I'm referring mainly to a lot of the qualitative surveys, but how do people feel that their service is provided? What is their level of satisfaction with services? It's important for us to include them so you can understand what is being likely to be proposed, and we do expect those measures to be the final measures, but that the definitions will be much clearer, so we'll have an understanding of what we need to measure, and then we'll be able to measure our performance against those measures year on year, and we'll also hope to be able to benchmark with other landlords on those measures. This report provides a benchmark against which the committee will be able to monitor and review our compliance and how we deal with complaints. And you'll be receiving regular reports on a 6-monthly basis to allow you to complete that review and to scrutinise our performance as a landlord. If there are any questions, please do say.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to raise something on Appendix 1. Apologies, I've just had to try and find the page. It's on page 64, Appendix 1, about the antisocial behaviour. It highlights supporting residents to use the Noise app to make easy records and evidence noise nuisance. But I'd just like the report and the officers just to consider residents who are unable to use the app and technology. I've had previous residents who've really struggled to use technology. They've been told, you know, you need to download the app, and not really supported in actually downloading the app, but just been told to download it and given information. So they've just then not bothered to download the app. And also, so I've had some residents who, instead of using the app, would make regular phone calls to the council, but they're not receiving that regular feedback from them. They're having voicemails being left with their complaints, but not followed up, and that's not being properly recorded on their files either. And some are really struggling to make notes. I've tried my best to make written notes for them and pass things over, but we just need to be mindful that due to some really stressful situations, making direct calls is the most effective way sometimes to log any incidents.
So certainly we do recognise that not everyone can use the Noise app. The reason we do encourage it is that what the Noise app allows people to do is actually record the issue that they're complaining about, so the loud music or the shouting, banging, and it allows us to get a record of that, which forms part of our evidence base to take effective action. And when they do that recording, it comes automatically through to the housing officer to allow them to actually act on it and respond with it and deal with it. But we absolutely fully recognise that not everyone has a smartphone, and we will, you know, and if we haven't been as good as we can be or will be about helping people actually talking them through the process of downloading the app, we absolutely will. We do, as a service, have one or two noise machines. One. We have one noise machine which we're able to lend out to our tenants in order for them to be able to record the noise for those people that don't have access to a smartphone or unable to download the app. We tend not to use that where people are able to use the Noise app because it only has a certain amount of memory and we can only have it with that person for a certain amount of time, so it becomes quite time limited and might not be there at the point when there's more of a problem. So that is why we do use the Noise app, because people have generally always got their phones on them and it's really simple and easy for them to record that issue and send it through, and it's automated, comes through really quickly through to our housing officer team. But as I said, we will absolutely support people who aren't able to do that. If people are struggling to keep evidence, then we'll work with them to make sure that we can. What I will just say is that during the pandemic, the number of complaints that we received of antisocial behaviour has increased very, very drastically. We have put some more resourcing in, and what we want to do is deal with complaints as early as we can before problems become embedded. So we will always work with people, and unfortunately, sometimes people don't get the calls back as quickly as they can, but we do make sure that we do contact people and we do try and keep in contact with people in regard to their complaints.
Okay. Yep, Trevor. I would say it'd be wise to consider purchasing some more machines, though. I didn't know we had just one. I don't think that's enough, I would say, personally.
Yeah, I would say probably 95, if not higher, 95% of our cases are all, or nearly 99% of our cases are all noise app. Now, everybody has come back to us with the noise app to use the noise app because it's so powerful and it's so easy to use, where the noise machine is a little bit cumbersome, if I'm honest, to actually use for residents. So we only really use that in the very odd case where a noise app can't be used. But it is about support, and so if there's any cases where that support isn't appropriate, then please let me know, because we will certainly look into those cases. All of our residents now are expect to be contacted at least every 2 weeks regarding the case, if not more frequent, depending on the circumstances. But yeah, we certainly will do. But yeah, we can have a look at that moving forward.
I would say even just one machine. If one machine breaks, you're then stuffed. You're better off having two just to counteract one. Councillor Gill and then Councillor Wainwright, please. Is your mic on? Sorry, Councillor.
It's been over 2 years since I've sat on the committee, and I don't know how long it is since I've sat on housing. But I hope this is the right place. I get a number of complaints about damp. Now, I noticed from one of your homes, quality of accommodation, and people are saying to me, they're getting damp spots and everywhere. I think one of the main reasons for this is probably because the houses were built in the 30s and they've been super glazed and super insulated. So what I'm saying is, I really think that officers of the council should be telling tenants that you can't live in a house and have no windows open, your central heating on and everything, and not expect it to be damp. I live in a house which is built in 1932, which is an ex-council house. I did not buy it off the council. I bought it on the open market, but I don't have any damp problems. And the other thing is, if the chairman is moving that we buy another machine, I'm more than happy to second him, because often things break down when you need them the most. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wainwright?
It's really just the app. I mean, I was dealing with a case, well, this is sort of an ongoing case, but I never even knew that the app existed. I've got a noise app on my phone, but I actually downloaded that from Google, I think, on the App Store. But I had no idea Yarmouth had got this app, and when I was talking to the tenant, well, it actually wasn't a tenant, he was a private resident who lives next door to a council house, he's getting a load of aggravation from. I said, well, just download it from the App Store. He said, well, no, there's the Yarmouth one. I had no idea it existed, and I'm not too sure how many councillors sitting here tonight knew it existed, but I didn't. So it might be a good idea perhaps to inform councillors that this app does exist and what tenants need to do to sort of download it. And coming back to the machines that we've got, I mean, I know of a recent resident, again, not a council tenant, who requested one. I mean, they're so old. I mean, you say they're limited recording, but I think they're sort of ancient, basically. So, perhaps we should look into buying a couple of the most up-to-date machines we can buy, because the ones we've got are not fit for purpose, as far as I understand. They just don't do what they should. But that's only what I've been told by people that have used them, basically, that they're just not fit for purpose. So, anyway, but if you could sort of circulate that to councils, so, we can tell tenants if they phone us, or any resident really, what they need to do.
Okay. Councillor Camden?
Thank you, Chair. Just firstly, I concur with Councillor Gill. I myself have experienced in the last 2 weeks 3 residents that have experienced damp in their property, one of them quite severe, to the point where brick patterns were visible through their wall. But so it might be worth just keeping an eye out for if this seems to be a trend which is happening. Onto the report. On Appendix 2, just below 4.0, we've got number of complaints, 16% staff behaviour. Can I just clarify, is that us directly, GYBC, or is that GYN staff?
So that information was provided by GYN.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, any more comments or questions? No. So the recommendations are to note the report. Moving on to item number 11, which is the Council Homes Programme, July, which is page 77 of your report.
Chair, did we decide that we would buy the new machines that Councillor Wainwright suggested, or we're not just going to rush over it?
I think it would be an internal, and it would be go and get them. Fair enough to say.
I think Environmental Health have just purchased or are in the process of purchasing a number of machines, so we'd need to look at them and utilisation against their own machine, and just see how their machines worked as well. I don't think we've actually had any complaints of the usage, but we'll definitely look into it and consider it to make sure that all our residents are able to log and provide us information on noise complaints that they're experiencing.
Thank you, Nicola. That's item 11 then.
So Claire Wilkins will be presenting this report.
And Claire then, please.
Thank you. Last month, the report to the Housing and Neighbourhoods Committee provided an update on the work that had been carried out in relation to the Council Homes Programme. This latest report provides more detailed information on works in relation to identifying infill sites and the wider approach in bringing them forward for delivery. This includes detailing how feedback from both members and local residents will be obtained and used to inform the design process. The report seeks approval to draw down expenditure to develop the first 2 sites within the pipeline, the conversion of a redundant boiler house at Charter Close, Galston to a 1-bedroom bungalow and a new build 2-bedroom bungalow at the Close, Bradwell, both designed to be fully accessible to a disabled occupier. Increased costs in materials and price increases for development in general have affected the viability of the boiler house. The tender process will be utilised to test the market costs and
Sorry, can we stop on that one? It's come to attention that there's a confidential item on that.
I'm not going to say any of the figures.
So, but the addresses are not on confidential, no?
Can I just confirm? I was led to believe that the report in its entirety was in the public domain. It's just if people want to talk about the appendix, then it's confidential, and we'd have to then invoke the...
Okay, I was just confirming with the addresses, that was all. No, so my apologies, Claire. No problem.
Panic over. So the tender process will be utilised to test the market costs and achieve best value for development. Detailed information in relation to the cost of the homes and the level of expenditure for which drawdown approval is sought are provided within the confidential appendix. Does anybody have any questions?
Councillor Hammond?
Yeah, can I just ask members if they wish to talk on the confidential, the actual figures, that the chairman needs to invoke the confidentiality clause. The meeting will be closed to public, and then we will debate it in private, Chair.
Then do we have to come back, or can we just do that at the end anyway? We can close the meeting though as such.
Well, yes, it's Councillor Hammond. So if you just take any questions on the report as it is, and then obviously if anybody wants to talk about the confidential paper, which includes the financial report, you then, we'll then close the meeting to the public. Then you'll read out the confidentiality clause. Okay. And then we'll have the rest of the meeting in private, Chair.
Okay. Is there any... Councillor Wainwright?
No, I don't want to talk on the on the figures. I mean, they've been obviously done by the architects and the experts, so I'm quite happy with those figures. It's just really on the... obviously, I represent the Magdalen estate where Charter Close is, and it would be great to see that boiler house actually brought back into use, because it could be another bungalow for... a resident, and I know we are short of sheltered housing, so the sooner that can be done, great. I mean, the one on the Close is just an infill site which needs to be done, as far as I'm seeing. Thank you.
Councillor Price?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. And again, I notice there is a caveat within the costings that, depending on what the costings come back, you have the right, or you will bring back the viability of the project, which I applaud on that. One of the things that, again, and please forgive me, like from last time, questioning the build-up to the project, I think it's fairly well known that in the next few years, the heating projects of properties are going to change from the conventional gas, which we have in the main in this borough. Are you, when you get these properties and when you get these developments, starting to figure in the new heat pumps, stroke hydrogen source of heating?
We are indeed. So come 2025, we won't actually legally be allowed to put gas boilers into properties any longer. So we're going to try and get ahead of that and see what alternatives there are. Air source does seem to be a good way forward, but it will be considered on an individual basis. And as part of the design standard that we are going to be working on with some of you guys, that is going to be one of the things that we look at and when we will use certain types of heating instead.
Okay, so the recommendations are on page 77. Can I have all those in favour? Any against? Abstentions? One. So that's section 100A4 of the Local Government Act 1972. The public be excluded from the meeting for the following item of the business on the grounds that involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 1 of part 1 of schedule 12A of the said act.
If you want to do the confidential first, I'll go after.
Okay, is the live stream stopped?